Hello and welcome back to the Connection Compass podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Louise Evans. For more information about my work, please check out Seasonally Guided. The link is in the show notes, along with more information about JP Horgan, our guest today. JP Morgan helps to cultivate peak performance. He's also a coach, consultant, motivational speaker, mindfulness meditation teacher, leads the Next Steps Academy, and is the host of the Phase 4 podcast. JP is someone who truly believes that all of us are born for something more. In this episode, we dive into belief, purpose, and what really holds us back from reaching our full potential. We talk about living through challenge, including JP's journey with a benign tumour, removing yourself from the fog, and how the choices we make can open us up to entirely new levels of awareness. We explore synchronicities, our relationship with God, and something greater, and why what we focus on expands, and how our story can become our superpower. This is a conversation about going low and slow, taking small steps every day, being open when we feel stuck, and creating the life we truly want, even when the obstacles show up. If you've ever felt there's something more waiting for you, this episode will speak right to you. Hi, GP. Welcome to the Connection Compass podcast. It's lovely that you're here. Could you share a little bit about yourself for our listeners, please?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's JP, performance coach. I mostly work with people looking for a transformation, people who know they have more, they just need some help. Personally, I like to work with new coaches the most because they're already halfway up the mountain, they're on their way. And basically, you set the goal and we work together to figure it out, whether that be body, mind, or spirit, whether it's something like running a marathon, writing a book, or even people in chronic pain and just trying to get through the day and navigate to the hard life, which is chronic pain. And that's one thing I'm definitely blessed to do. I get to facilitate groups for chronic pain, anxiety, and depression. And there's something special when you're in a group where if one person just starts to share and be vulnerable, it's almost like silent permission for everyone else in the group to do it. And there were times along the past few years where I thought, I'm just going here and talking, and I'm not sure if anyone's even listening. Then all of a sudden, you see one girl who has, it's called agoraphobia. She was afraid to leave her apartment. And I just try to get her, like, just walk down the hall. You don't have to go far. Just go down the hall and come back. Now, all of a sudden, this lady's out doing yoga in the park. She's gone back to college. And another woman was same disabled. She had to walk around with a cane and a walker. Same thing. She wasn't afraid to leave her apartment. She just didn't because of the pain. And now this girl's going to the gym. I have to try and slow her down now. She's going so fast into the gym. But basically, it doesn't matter if you're a CEO or if you're just a single mom at home. All of us are born for something more. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we're really only giving it 40 or 50%. So the goal is, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I can help you get there.
One of the things that really stood out for me in what you've just said, and I think it's quite a unique perspective, and perhaps particularly a unique perspective to men, but you recognize the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of ourselves. And it's often the spiritual bit that gets missed out. So, why is that element really important to you? How have you got there to recognize that level of the human spirit?
Yeah, for sure. I can't do it any other way. And I know some people just don't see it or don't feel it, or maybe we're scared away at a young age. So for me personally, I was raised Catholic, and then my relationship with God has totally changed. It's not that I don't believe in God. It just looks very different. It's not someone sitting on the clouds judging me, you're bad, right? I realize that there's a piece of it within me and piece of it within everybody. And so the spiritual aspect has nothing to do with religion. For me, this is more about myself, partly nature, distilling all the different religions and taking bits of that information. And we have to look at it and say, wow, these guys are all kind of saying the same thing. So how could so many people be wrong? And yeah, you can argue about the nuance of each religion, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. There's something bigger that's controlling movement. And
Mm.
I'll give you a great example. I have a course, it's called the Artist Tao. It's a mix of the Artist Way and the Tao Te Ching. And I took them together and I put it into a 12-week course. And one of these weeks, there's something called an artist date. And this is a date that you take yourself on. It's for you and no one else. And the idea of the date is that you go out and you just get outside of your own environment and you try and spark creativity. And so this could be going to a thrift shop and just getting some gadgets and making some kind of artwork. It could be going to a gallery and checking out some paintings. So I go on this artist date. And before I left, I said, let's make this a spiritual experience. I said this to myself, like, we're looking for the spiritual experience. All of a sudden, I go into this bookstore and I'm like, I'm going to go check out this on my artist date. I go in the bookstore and the lady goes, are you here for the art showing? And I'm like, I guess I am. She goes, yeah, it's just down the hallway. Go to the back and turn right. There's drinks and food. Help yourself. I go into this place. There's this huge art gallery showing all this wine and fine food and people. I felt underdressed, but it was okay. A- And I'm thinking, wow, like the universe placed me here at this time to go on this artist date. Like, how could that possibly, like, I didn't know this was happening, right? Then I find out that the person who's hosting the art showing, that it's her very first time doing this. And so now here I am contributing to her idea of having lots of people at her art showing. And we didn't know each other. We've never met since, but something pulled us both together. And I
Mm.
don't know, that's just one example, but there's countless examples. I'm
Yeah.
sure you have some too.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say, so I've been brought up in the Catholic religion as well, and I don't feel particularly connected to it anymore. I haven't done for a long, long time. And I remember a few years ago, I was thinking about this, and sometimes I wonder if it's because we've been taught that that is something external to us, and the actual spiritual life that we're living is actually internal. It's part of us, and a part of it's part of something greater than a religion itself. But it's funny. It's not really a topic to talk about a lot. The religions that we grew up in.
Thank you. I appreciate you talking to him about it. There's a book by Deepak Chopra called How to Know God, and he goes through 7 different stages. And if you go and read this book, I hope you're on 6 or 7, but you'll notice, oh my God, I was there, I was there, I was there, and now I'm here. And I'm
Yeah.
still reaching for that 7th stage, but it was just fascinating. The way he explains it is so simple. Another story, if you don't mind, was from that book. He was in India. He's artist for a book cover that he uses was in Dublin or something like that,
Mhm.
and something about California. He overheard his artist overheard someone's name, right? And he's like, "Is that this person?" And they're like, I don't know. Anyway, the person who he had to meet, he pulled over. Deepak was in California. He pulls over on the side of the road. He's having this conversation with the guy in Dublin. The guy in Dublin just overheard somebody say this person's name. He goes, ask if it's that person. It was the person he needed anyway. So then they call that person. That person, sorry, lived in India. But the person's like, sorry, I can't help you right now. I'm in California. Deepak's in California, pulled over at the side of the road, making this conversation call. And then the girl's like, he's like, well, I'm happen to be in California right now. If you'd like to meet up, we could do this in a couple hours. She goes, yeah, sure. Here's my address. He looks up and he's parked in front of her house.
Oh, wow.
And these are the kind of synchronicities that Jung talked about, that it's a part of it. There's something bigger than us. How do we breathe while we sleep? How does our hair and toenails grow? Like, we can't make it stop. There's something happening.
And I do feel very much part of something bigger, and feel closer to God when we're in nature and when we're just connecting. It feels like something else, something more comforting and real and more explorative. Like, particularly Catholicism, it's quite strict. It's, or there's different levels of it. There's not much room for exploration, really. It's just like, this is how it is. And you have to follow the rules. Whereas when we're connected to something greater, to me, it suggests something a lot more explorative and expansive with potential. So, how did you get into doing what you're doing? Because you've been on quite a journey, haven't you, to get here?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, well, if we go back a long, long time, I was a young guy, 30 years old about, and I found out I had a tumor in my spine, benign tumor, but it was causing me chronic pain. And it was so bad that I couldn't cough, laugh, sneeze, breathe. I couldn't take a deep breath without this chronic pain. And of course, they give you one pill for this, one pill for this. And so all of a sudden, first I tried surgery, that didn't work. I tried radiation, and that just stopped it from growing, but it didn't really get rid of it. Because of where it is in my spine, they could scrape away, but he didn't want to go closer because he said you would end up disabled. So I try all these things, and along the way, this is over probably an 8 or 10 year period. Started with one pill, two pills, and then I was taking like 33 pills a day.
Mhm.
And I was getting around with a mobility scooter to like just go around the block. It was really sad. And I guess one day, when I was about to turn 40, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. My son was about to turn 5, and I never really was able to pick him up or throw him or do all those things that a dad should do or that a son probably needs a dad to do. And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So I slowly started taking out the pills. And if anyone's listening to this and thinking about doing that, you have to do it with a doctor because it could be very dangerous. And so once I started doing this, I had to actually go see that doctor 2 or 3 times a week for a 6 month period because he wanted to monitor it. And we already had a good relationship, but being that close that often, we started talking more. And this guy was about 65, 60. And I could tell he felt so bad. He could see himself in me, and he could see that I shouldn't be in this position. And I could tell he genuinely felt bad. But his world, his background is medicine. And so what he's doing is going in the textbooks thinking, okay, if I do this, I can give him 3 of those, 2 of those. And he was trying to help, but it wasn't helpful. I heard the other doctor say, if you've been taking those pills for so long and they're not working, you got to ask yourself, why are you taking them? Are you just giving your power away to the doctor, which I was doing? So anyway, I slowly get off the pills. I start to get my senses back, and things look totally different. My whole world before was probably sports and maybe even music, like rock and roll. And I just didn't find any, not that there wasn't joy. I wasn't interested. I didn't want to be like, my identity is Liverpool. My identity is the Washington Redskins, whatever they're called. And so I just woke up from this fog, which is what the pills do. They cover up your pain, but they also cover up your soul. And so after I wake from this slumber, I started walking around. I started seeing the trees shimmering and shining and stars, things I never really looked at before, moon, meteor showers, and just like, wow, totally in awe of sunrises, sunsets, the things that were always there. But when you're in pain, you're looking straight ahead, right? And then if you could take off the blinders, now you can start seeing more. So this is probably early 2019. And I just started devouring information. All sorts of books came into my life at the right time, the right people, the mentors. So people like Joe Dispenza, Vishen Lakhiani, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, all of these amazing people. And something I noticed really quickly that first 6 months or first year was that they're all saying the same thing. So it didn't matter if it was a rabbi or a yogi or a military instructor, a psychologist, a motivational speaker, a writer, all of them were saying the same thing. And a few of those things are what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower, both of which I use as taglines for my companies. Now, the thing about what we focus on expands is that's what I was doing. I was giving myself these 33 pills. So let's say it was 8 pills 4 times a day. And so at 7 a.m., I would tell myself, man, I need these 8 pills. And then again at 12, I need this, I need this. And I'm taking it and I'm just reinforcing how much I'm depending and how screwed I am, right? And so what we focus on expands. Now, the other way around, I was like, wow, if this is true, which it is, what if we create it the way we want it? And this is where a year later, COVID happened. I go into this COVID and I'm like, wow, this is why I learned all of this stuff because now I can help all these people. And it was just like that first year was so expansive. Like I'm in those past 5, 6 years since, and I've probably read 500 books. And the when COVID came around, it was like I knew exactly what to do and how to help. And the idea of what we focus on expands. Mind Valley is who I've got. I'm a business coach as well, but I focus more on life coaching. And so Mind Valley, I went through a bunch of certifications for life coaching, business coaching, and even meditation teacher. So there's a group of about 1,000 of us that are certified to teach the 6 phase meditation, which I'd like to gift to your listeners later.
Yeah,
And
lovely.
yeah, and so what we focus on expands. Now, in the 6 phase meditation, there is a phase 4, and the phase 4 is all about creating your future 3 years in advance. Because Bill Gates said we tend to overestimate what we can get done in 1 year, but we also tend to underestimate what we can get done in 5 or 10 years. So 3 years is a nice timeline. You can measure if you go off course, you're not going to go too far off course, but 3 years out. So I started doing this in like September 2019. Now, by September 21 or 22, 3 years later, everything on my list came true, except it came true in a way more magical way than I could have imagined. So either I wasn't giving enough detail or the universe responds to our thoughts and our actions. That force that we're talking about that grows your hair, it's listening. And when we ever hear talking about manifesting, people talk, oh, I manifest. I was sitting there and I meditated and the Ferrari never was there when I woke up because you have to do something. But what happens when you do manifest and set your intentions and then take action is that the universe will respond. And so if it took you 40 or 50 years for your life to get low, it might take a little bit of time for your life to start going back up. It might not happen overnight. Sometimes it does. I've had things happen instantly that are unexplainable and insane. We won't even go there because it's unbelievable, even though it happened to me. But the universe responds. And so if you're looking at manifesting and you're saying your words matter, right? All of our words matter. So when I was sick back then, I was saying, why me? Why me? Why me? And I'm, oh, my back, oh, my back, oh, my back. And of course it's going to hurt. And because what we focus on expands and because the universe responds, once you set your intentions, the actions, the opportunities will come. Let's say one of your intentions is that you want to be less angry. You're not just going to be less angry. What's going to happen is that the universe will give you opportunities to practice being less angry. And so the idea with the phase 4, it's so cool because you get to create your future. And then what happens once you see the results, you don't need anybody else to tell you anything because you've created the evidence of your own success.
Why does what we focus on expand? Is there Can you go a little bit more detail into perhaps the energy, the energetics of that?
Sure, there's something called the reticular activating system, the RAS, and this is like when you buy a new car and then you start to see that car everywhere. That car was always there. Those other cars that are similar to yours or the same color or whatever, that's always there. A dress, new shoes, whatever. The thing is that you weren't looking for it, so it wasn't important to you. But your RAS finds what's important and then it goes and looks for it. So if you start picturing, and this you can do, it doesn't even have to be real, right? You can imagine this. So if I keep imagining every day that I'm going to come to England and have a drink with you one day, and I just keep picturing that visiting that visualization every day over and over again, my brain will find opportunities just like we were talking about. And maybe I don't take those opportunities. Maybe all of a sudden in the newspaper, there's a thing, oh, fly to England for $500 right now. And I'm like, I don't take it, but the opportunity's there. So part of it is that you're giving your brain something to reach for. So
Mm,
by saying, and then what happens when you have that, it, a little bit, it will drive your behavior. So this is more of a peak performance one, but let's say you want to run a marathon in May, right? We're at early January now, or whenever this airs. And between now and May, I want to run a marathon, but I need to practice between now and then. So that drives your behavior, which actually ends up getting you the goal. From a more spiritual perspective, it's like what I said. If you don't ask the universe or God or whatever for what you want, what you desire,
mm,
you're just going to get what's left once everyone else does take their pick. It's like a menu or a restaurant. If you go into the restaurant and you just say to the guy, I want dinner, he might bring you food. It might not be what you want. But if you tell him, like, I want this with this and this and this and this, I want a salad, I want whatever it is. Once you're clear, it makes it much easier for the waiter to bring you what you want.
mm. So that's quite interesting. So we ask for what we want, put our order in, and then it's up to us to pick up on those nudges and take actions when opportunities are presented to us. Do you think that sometimes the logical mind can override those opportunities and that people see those often don't see those opportunities?
I'll show you an example, probably maybe from your life, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but have you joined a course or something online that you were getting emails to join for a while? And then finally you said, okay, I'm going to do it. That was God coming to tell you, come do this thing. And your
Yeah.
logical mind's like, ah, that's not for me. I don't know. I'm not right now. Maybe later.
Yeah, in 2024, I started my somatic yoga training, and I'd been getting nudges to do that training for about 3 years beforehand, and it was exactly what I needed, and I kept getting emails, but I have to say that I some of the course was during the day, and I would have found it really difficult to take it on, but in 2024, I had lots of space to be able to do that, and it was the right time. It came along at the right time, but yeah, I'd been getting like little whispers, "Do your somatic training, do your somatic training, do you,"
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely that's a classic example. Yeah.
There's a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
Eat, Pray, Love,
Yeah,
same
yeah,
author.
I watched that film last night.
Oh, wow. Of course you did. There's more of those synchronicities, so maybe this will be good. So she also wrote a book called Big Magic. It's about
Yeah.
writing, but it's also
Yeah.
about the universe and magic. And she talks about how she was writing this manuscript for a book. And she would write it, then put it away for a couple months, come back to it, put it away. And finally it just sat in her desk, right? And she went to see this other writer somewhere in America, a writer she knows but has never met. And the other writer knew her, but they've never met. Anyway, they meet. Nice to meet you. They give a big hug and a kiss to each other.
Mm,
And then all of a sudden, months down the road, this other writer comes out with a book. So these two didn't discuss the manuscript that Elizabeth Gilbert was writing. This other girl's book had the same characters in the same setting, like just stuff you couldn't make up. And it was so niche that it was just like, what? She felt like the girl stole her book, but she didn't because, and her idea was that magic or God or the universe, source, whatever you want, it was swirling around her and trying to get her to write this book. And she wouldn't write it and she would put it down. And she says, the magic will come. Those nudges that you're talking about, they will keep coming. And that's how you know it's for you because like you're not thinking about baking cookies, you're thinking about doing somatic training. That's the
yeah.
nudges. And
Mhm.
what happens is if you don't take those nudges, that inspiration, that magic will leave you and go to someone else. And so, anyway, they figured it out later that they both of them agree and believe that the magic that was swirling around her was transferred when she gave the girl a hug and a kiss, and that magic went into her. And that girl wrote the exact same book, same setting, same characters, same time, like crazy.
Mhm. I think if we just go back to Eat, Pray, Love, that's because there's quite an interesting part near the beginning of that film. So I can't remember what year Eat, Pray, Love came out, but it was a few years after I sold my house, gave up my job, and went traveling. And what they portray really well in that film is where is just she's just going over and over in her thoughts, and she knows that something's not right, and she's repeating the same patterns over and over again, and she gets to a point where she's, like, on her knees, and she's saying, "Please, please help me," and I think when we get stuck in those loops, that sometimes it's about being open to something greater and trusting that instinct that you know when you're not in the right place. It doesn't have to be like that. It
Yeah, for sure.
takes a lot of
That's
courage
what
and faith. Mm,
that's what happened with me. I was when I first started waking up and changing, I'd never meditated before. I started slowly meditating and that definitely changed things. And then just being open to the idea, I went to this group meditation like that September, so like 6, 8 months later. And that was the first time I ever experienced a group meditation, but that was like a whole nother level of elevation and love and whatever. And I don't think if I was open, I don't know if I would like, thankfully I was like naive or that's not the right word, but I wasn't very logical or you know what I mean? I'm more of just like I was very open to receiving whatever was happening and it worked. I think if I wasn't, I don't think it would have worked.
mm. So, one of the things that you advocate for is taking small steps every day. So why is the small steps really important?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. So, like we always hear, if we can't do the little things right, how are we going to do the big things? But the thing about that is it stacks so fast. And when you say small steps, I use the saying, go low, go slow. And if you
Mm,
can lock that into your brain, go low, go slow. So, right now we're at the beginning of January, we've got 12 months. And if we look at like a big picture, I want to do this, it seems big, it's overwhelming sometimes.
mm,
Let's use a marathon, for example. If you want to do a marathon, it's overwhelming. That's a lot. I'm on the couch. How am I going to go from being on the couch to running a marathon? You're not. You're going to go from being on the couch to running 1 kilometer and then two, three, four. And slowly over time, these habits stack. But if you think of it in terms of journaling for 10 minutes a day, and you do that for a whole year, and then you do it for 5 years, and then 10 years. You're gonna get really clear on your thoughts, you're gonna learn how to speak better, you're gonna learn how to articulate. Journaling's a really good one because it doesn't take a lot of time, almost anybody can do it, and what happens is we have thoughts in our head, and they're like shoelaces that get crossed over and mixed up, and there's knots, and some of those thoughts aren't even ours. They're people put them in our heads when we were little kids, and we still believe them, and you could probably see this right now at Christmas. There's traditions or there's patterns that keep happening. My mom, I know that her mom was a control freak, and I noticed at Christmas time, she wouldn't even sit down to eat the dinner. She was cleaning the dishes when she put the dinner on the table. I'm like, sit down. And she's like, I just have to clean this. And that's
mm.
the pattern, right?
I think when we do go slower, we do recognize those patterns that we can change.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. If you look for them, you'll see them. For me, it's not about that. It's more about creating what you want and then taking slow steps. And push-ups is another good one. If you did 1 or 2, like, start with 1 push-up today, do 2 tomorrow, and it's, like, laughable, right? "Oh, okay, I could do 1." And then all of a sudden, after a month, you're at 30. And I'm not suggesting someone just go and do push-ups all the time, but this is a good analogy is that's how quickly it can stack. And
Yeah, you've just got to start, haven't you?
100%. When COVID started, I right away, I'm like, "I need a health plan, like, I need to exercise," and just so I started walking.
Mm,
And one day, so then the walk got longer and longer, and it was about 5 kilometers, and then one day I ran the last 100 meters, then the last 200, 400, And then slowly I was running around this whole loop. And then I had to make a bigger loop. And now I'm running marathons. And it's like I went from nothing to that. And this was like at this time 3 years ago, I had not run a marathon. Now I've run six or so, seven. In that, in the training to do all that, I've run about 65 half marathons, which is crazy. And this summer, I'm going to run a 500 kilometers in 2 weeks. And
Wow.
all that started by just walking, right? So
Mhm.
go low, go slow. And then I didn't expect any of this. That wasn't my plan. My plan was just to stay fit during this craziness that was happening. But this is where we ended up.
And what do you think prevents people from then engaging in taking steps or reaching their full potential or doing what they want to do? What kind of things have you seen and how can we navigate that?
The number one thing is belief. And
Mhm.
once you have belief, it's happening anyway, right? You hear people all the time, oh, I can't afford that. That's your belief. And then that's what's happening in your reality. Or the other way is, I can afford this. I'll figure out a way. And I've always have. So belief's number one. And sometimes it just takes someone else to believe in us. So if anyone's listening and they're stuck, I believe in you. And I know this because I've done it. I have tons of proof of my own life. And if I could go from a mobility scooter to running marathons, so can anyone can do anything, I think. And so
Mm.
sometimes we need someone else to believe in us, which is fine. That's what a coach does. A coach holds
Yeah.
your vision until you can become the type of person who's able to step into it. And
Yeah.
there are some things where we have dreams where maybe we don't have the belief. When I first started marathon, I didn't believe I could do it that day, but I did believe I could work towards it and become the type of person. And so that's like anybody. If you have a dream in life and you don't believe in yourself right now, that's okay. Because once you work with a coach and you make the plan, maybe you're here today. So, yeah, you don't believe in yourself. That's okay. You make the dream, you want to end up over here, and then you slowly become the type of person. So, the person you are today maybe doesn't believe it, but in a couple months from now, you're going to start believing it, and then you'll get more success and traction.
Have you ever I completely understand around, like, being an anchor for somebody as they're navigating and being able to step. Y you're almost, like, grounding for them, aren't you? You're becoming steadfast for them as they're navigating this. Have you ever experienced almighty pushback? Like, really strong pushback?
All the time. It's not like pushback where it's almost like I just say if you want to hang on to your limiting beliefs so much, go ahead. Like, but if you want to get the goal, like just trust me, this is how we're gonna do it. Let's work
Mhm.
towards it. And it's not me. The person's articulating their own goals, right? So this isn't
Yeah.
my dream. This is your dream. I'll
Mhm.
believe in your dream for you, but the pushback comes from those patterns, from those limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
from other people. I'll give you a good one, the watch, right? You're a nurse, so this, I don't know, you might see this more than me. The watch, when you put it on while you're sleeping, it monitors your heart rate. And if
Yeah.
your heart rate drops to a certain number, like between 38 and 41, it sends off this alarm and it's like, oh, go get medical help. Your heart is something wrong. But really, if you're like running all the time the way I am, then your heart rate is lower and it's totally fine.
Mhm.
But it's telling me this information based on everybody else that's not me. It's taking an average male, my age, my height, my weight, and it's putting in, okay, if the heart rate is that low, then there's something wrong. But I'm training my heart to do that while I'm running. So when I see it, it's not a concern. But that's one of those things. So this limiting belief is like we're looking at other people. And now in the age of social media, it's even worse. Just when we see that, we see someone and we're like, oh, I wish I could do that. And you're only seeing that tiny little sliver of their life. You're not seeing the rest
Yeah.
of it. Or even people on stages. I know people like, I could never do that. And it's like, that guy didn't start like that. You know what I mean? You're seeing the finished product. What you're
Yeah.
not seeing is the roots growing under the soil like a bamboo tree for years before it
Yeah.
springs up.
And that's why that's one of the reasons I started podcasting was to hear people's stories and how they've navigated life and changes and the decision making, the process.
How does
Mm,
that help you in your life? So you're saying you're learning from other people, right? But so how does that help you in your own?
well, ooh, I think oh, that's a tricky question. I don't even know. Well, actually, I'll tell you something. I have a guest coming on to the podcast in a few weeks, and that podcast is about internal resistance, and it's really interesting. So, the week that we're due to record the podcast, I was poorly, and I was genuinely unwell. I wasn't well at all. I clearly picked up some kind of bug. And anyway, we come to record, and it was about 15 minutes before, and I'd completely recovered from this illness. But then I started getting symptoms again 15 minutes beforehand. I know. And in the podcast, he's called Cam Knight, and he's an internal resistance specialist. And in it, he says internal resistance sometimes shows up in lots of different ways, Andrea, like getting sick. And it was like, oh no, it was like, no way. It was so funny, and I was like,
That's
"Oh,
funny.
no, I've got to look at my own internal resistance now." And he was spot on. There was, like, internal resistance to work through. So, yeah, I think for me, it's, listening to people's stories, and that particular topic is absolutely fascinating. But I think it's about finding connection that you're not often on your own. And sometimes it's a bit like what you were saying about the doctor earlier, seeing himself in you. And, you know, those stories we don't often hear about because we've got a very surface level driven world. So it's about finding connection as well. And not just for me, but for everybody who's listening and who comes on the podcast. What inspired you to start your podcast? I'm just checking.
Wow. So my podcast called the Phase 4 Podcast, where we focus on expands for body, mind, and spirit. I talk to all sorts of different coaches and creatives, and we're about to hit episode 250 on January.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's
Congratulations.
evolved. Thank you. It's evolved a bunch over the years, but originally, when I first woke up, that was one of the things I was like, I want to do a podcast. This is 2019. I just didn't know what to do, how to do, what style. Some people just have their own podcast where they're just talking. Some have this interview kind of thing, what we're doing. And I didn't know what to do. So I didn't do anything. But once then that Mind Valley, those life coach, business coach, and meditation certifications came around, I was like, this is my thing. These are my people. And I just started asking them, hey, do you want to come on a podcast? And just started recording. And I'll tell you a funny story. The first two episodes. So we had this hurricane. I don't know. It wasn't a hurricane. It was this really crazy, crazy once in 100-year storm come through. And it went about 500 kilometers from where I live east to Montreal, like very far from Toronto and Montreal. And it took out trees. The power lines were just lifted out of the ground, the poles. So we didn't have internet where we live for 3 weeks, they told us. And I already had the first two episodes, I had them scheduled to record back to back. And I'm like, what do I do? I know the people would say, yeah, no problem. But internal resistance, I was like, is this the universe testing me to see how bad I want it? And I'm like, yeah, the universe is definitely testing me. So I go to the library, and there's a beautiful library near my house overlooking the water. And they got these kind of cubicle booths, and they're out of the library over the grass. You can look down in the
Beautiful.
water. Yeah, beautiful. And so I'm like, okay, you can rent them, right? So I rented it. I'm going to record these episodes, but you can't talk in a library, right? Shh, be quiet. So I didn't say anything. I get on the Zoom call, and right when I opened my mouth, I could hear the wood walls all around was wooden walls, and the echo is just horrible. And so again, what do? The universe is testing you, and there's this internal resistance like, oh, I want it to be good, but I also don't want to cancel and have to wait. And I think the universe is testing me. So we just did it anyway. So the first two episodes the audio is horrible. It's a little better now, but a couple years later, I found an AI tool, and this is before ChatGPT, but a couple years after that, I found an AI tool that will clean the audio and it
Yeah.
will take crappy audio and it will fix it. So I went back and I fixed it, but that technology wasn't even invented at the time, but I
Mm.
just showed up anyway, right? So that's another thing. I want this podcast. So this is the internal voice. Do the podcast. You want to do it, blah, blah, blah. And then the opportunity comes. Are you taking it or not? Because I could have easily just said, oh, you know what? My internet's not here for 3 weeks. Move on. But that's it. The universe is testing us. So
Amazing, brilliant. And what's your plans for the future?
my plans for the future. So this is a good one. So like I said earlier, phase 4 is about creating a future 3 years out. So one question I ask everybody is, what's your phase 4? What's your 3-year plan? And if you're asking me my 3-year plan, it's expansion, just the way I'm going already, but even more. So give out motivational speeches. I'd like to do that a lot more. Coaching is great. I'm not sure group coaching is good, but I think I do it served its purpose almost. Now I
Mm.
wanna do one-on-one more because I want that transformation. I wanna see that transformation much more, and I already do, but it would be nice, something like run coaching I'm doing too. So something like training people to go to marathons and then going to the marathon with them, that would be
Wow.
cool. And then 3 years, you always gotta think of your family. So my kids, whoa, my son will be in high school by then. That's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting. But yeah, probably write a couple of books between now and then and just kind of keep expanding the way I have been.
I am planning on building a school. So,
Nice.
yeah,
That's
like
amazing.
connection and intuition, and I suppose creating spiritual depth and
Nice.
growth. And it's really funny, but I've been very conflicted for quite a long time whether I go down a more strategic, logical way or path, or whether I go down a more spiritual. And I've always resisted the spiritual route, and I don't know why, because it's always been a big part of me. I think it was probably I did have some internal resistance around with the strategic and the logical. I can do it, it's fine on what I'm used to. And the spiritual, I can do it. It's what I used to. It's part of my life, but it's part of an internal part of my life that I don't really make external. But there's some discomfort in the taking it external, I think. And I think once I worked through that, I think the path became really clear. I was like, right, I know what I need to do now. And the logical and the strategic is still there. It's kind of like the foundation, if you like. And I will probably go back to, like, a leadership element, but I think there's stuff to do beforehand.
There's a tool Mind Valley has called the 3 most important questions, 3 MIQs. And this is a great tool. It might help you.
Mhm.
And basically, you write 3 columns on a sheet of paper. So you see, like,
Yeah.
uh, so you
Yeah, I
got
can
3 rows. And so one row at the top, you're going to write, do I want to experience? The next column is, how do I want to grow? And the third column is, how do I want to contribute? What do I want to give back?
Mm,
And so the first row, what do I want to experience? Let's say you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
yeah.
How do you want to grow? Well, you're probably going to have to get a little stronger in your legs. You're going to have to learn about oxygen pressure, food. You're going to have to do all the things to grow to be that person who can climb that experience. And then the final one, how do I give back? That it might not mix in with this, but like basically you take those 3 things, you write as much as you can, and that's almost like your life plan. And what will happen is you'll start to see, okay, this can help me here. And if I do this, and that's going to give you your best option for a complete life of happiness and well being. And then the next level to that is to share it with the people you love. Let them do it as well, or your work colleagues, and see if there's stuff that mixes across. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? I didn't know that. Let's do it together. Boom. And then your life grows from there.
Thank you so much, JP. It's been wonderful speaking to you, and take care and see you soon.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode on the Connection Compass podcast. If you think this episode will help someone else, please leave a review. For more information about JP and also my own, please check out the show notes today. And remember to keep talking, keep connecting for a more interconnected world.